Today, I want to share a really powerful story with you about the things that stop us from really shining in life, from expressing our fullest power, what those things are that are stopping us, and how we can overcome them and see past that. And the story I want to tell you today is called The Golden Buddha. And essentially, it all goes back to a tale about two people, a couple, that were once visiting Thailand, and they entered this temple, which was quite a small temple. But inside of the temple, there was a statue of a golden Buddha that was about 12.5 feet tall and took up most of this small temple. And the couple entered and they were in awe of this statue. And as they were following the monk around the temple, exploring the artifacts, the guy came and he stopped. And next to the golden Buddha, there was a little glass box. And inside of this glass box, there was a piece of clay that was about 10 inches wide and 8 inches high. And he stopped and he asked the monk who was showing them around, you know, what's so special about this piece of clay? And the monk told them that back in 1957, a monastery in Thailand was being moved from one side of the city of Bangkok to the other. And the monks in charge were helping to move all of the artifacts and taking good care of them so that nothing would get destroyed. And at the time, there was a clay Buddha statue inside of this temple. And so the head monk, who was in charge of overseeing the whole operation of the movement, you know, was taking care of the statue this particular day and ordering the other monks to, you know, be really careful when lifting it. And so they got a crane and they put the statue, you know, hoisted it up. But it was really rainy that day. If you've ever been to Southeast Asia or Asia in general, you know it can be very humid. And so there was a lot of rain at the time, and the head monk wanted to make sure that the statue wouldn't get damaged. And so he put over this canvas, this tarp, to cover it. And that evening, as they were hoisting up the statue, they realized that the clay had started to break a little bit. And so he was really concerned about it getting damaged and went to check on it from time to time. And so he entered and he had his flashlight with him and he started to check all sides of the statue underneath the tarp, making sure that it hadn't been damaged by anything. And when he shone the light on a certain part of it, he realized that there was a light shining through. And so he got a chisel and a hammer and he started to chisel away at the statue little by little to see what is this light behind this clay statue. And to his amazement, there started to emerge an even greater light. The more that he chipped away, the more the light started to shine. And by the end of it, he got so carried away, he stepped back and realized that in front of him, the statue had now become a statue of gold. Behind all of that clay, there was a golden statue hiding there the whole time. And what had happened was that centuries before that, when Thailand was still Siam, the monks of the monastery at the time were really scared of their statue and all of their precious artifacts being looted by the Burmese army. And so what they did to protect it was they decided to cover the statue up in clay. You know, they masked it so that it wouldn't appear as really precious to anybody and it wouldn't get looted. But they died as well and never shared this story and never shared what was really underneath the clay. And so centuries later, they discovered the statue was actually made out of gold and not of clay. Now, why I share this story is because each one of us has a golden Buddha inside. We have this light shining inside of us. And a lot of the time, you know, if we experience troubles in life, we have this negative self-talk, we have these limitations that stand in our way. It's like that feeling of being pushed one way and then pulled the other way, where you have these dreams, you have these desires, but then this negativity comes in and these feelings that make you really small. It's because we have this fear, these fears that we've picked up from the conditioning in our life, when we actually just wish, each and every one of us wishes that we could be accepted for who we are. Feel free to express who we are without these fears coming in our way. And I know what that feels like. You know, I had this fear once of taking up space. I was so deeply scared of being who I truly am, of sharing my voice, and it would manifest itself in different ways, like of putting a video out there, of expressing my thoughts, of sharing who I really am. Because over time, maybe you've experienced this as well, you know, we pick up this conditioning that is the clay from early childhood, from the age of 2, where we hear things like, you know, be quiet, don't talk so loud. It's a piece of the clay going on. You've got to listen to other people. Don't speak your mind too much. Especially as a woman, I've heard this so many times in my life where I needed to please other people. You know, be good. Another piece of the clay going on. Don't have too many opinions. People won't like you. Another piece of the clay. And so we've all picked up this conditioning over the time of our life. And what we don't realize is that even when we become adults, we move out of home, maybe we move to another country, we meet new people, we leave behind everything. Still, some of these fears still linger. The conditioning lingers inside of us. And so, what can we do? What can we do to uncover this beautiful golden spirit inside of us? That purest form of who you are before all of the conditioning happened, before all the fear started to grip at you and tell you who you should be instead of letting you be who you really are. One thing that I've developed that's really helped me personally overcome a lot of fears in my life and helped my clients, and anybody who I've shared this with has really benefited. It's my 3-step process to releasing fear. And this holistic process is about release. It's not about overcoming fear, because when we try to overcome fear, we're actually giving that fear a lot more energy. It takes a lot more energy. What helps and actually gives you energy is the release, because you let go of something and in turn you let something else come in place that is uplifting, that is positive, that's actually going to help us take the steps that we want to take. And so the first step of this holistic process is to get curious. We can't feel curiosity and fear at the same time. So get curious. Where does this fear come from? Where did it all begin? This is how I started my process when I was thinking, why do I have this fear of taking up space, of speaking up, of being seen? Where does that come from? And then once you discover that and let yourself explore and get curious, then you move into the second phase, which is preparation. Now, preparation means knowing that you're going to be faced with circumstances that are going to trigger that fear. So for me, especially with my goals and my dreams of becoming a mentor, of becoming a speaker, of having my own personal business and brand, there was absolutely a huge necessity for me to overcome this fear because I wanted to. And so once I had gotten curious, I started to prepare. You know, what things can you do to minimize the feeling of it being such a big leap? So for me, that meant starting small by sharing my thoughts with people closest to me, with sharing my first video on YouTube, with writing my blog on the internet. And slowly, step by step, that was my preparation. And finally, exposure. The third part of the process is exposure, because fundamentally, the only way to really release a fear is to be exposed to the exact thing that you are most afraid of. And unless it's something really like life-threatening, chances are that the fear is really something that has been magnified in our mind, but actually isn't that scary. I mean, how many times in our life have we overcome things or, been through things and released fear only to look back and think like, man, that wasn't that bad. I definitely have that feeling now when I think about the things that I've overcome, especially this fear about taking up space. I think, man, was I keeping myself small? And for who? When there's such a light shining inside of me that wants to express itself. Same thing for you. The final step, exposing yourself. That's why we have the preparation and the curiosity come before the exposure. Because if you just jump to the exposure, that's where you're just going to get traumatized. And so it's really important to move through these steps and then expose yourself to the thing, because that's where you'll realize that you're capable. You're more capable than you've ever realized. So remember, just like the golden Buddha that was uncovered by the monk in the story, each one of us has that inside of us. And we get to now chip away with the chisel and hammer at those fears. Break free, let go, release. And using this holistic 3-step process to releasing fear is really going to help to do that. But in the meantime, remember that everything you need is already inside of you. You have everything you need to make your dreams come true. So stay inspired, and I'll see you very soon.